Now, as we conclude, I wanted to kind of go through something that is, it's in the news, and I'm watching people argue this stuff, Christians argue about things that are happening in our country, and especially there's an awful lot of turmoil that you can see happening in the government, and just talking with people here recently about this, that we're in a very, very different time because as far as politics are concerned, we're not really in a time where the nation is being run by a politician. So whether you love him or whether you hate him or whether you just don't like him or however you want to put it, the thing with the current president is that he's not a politician. When he's done in office, he's going to go right back to private life, and he's got a life of his own. He doesn't want to stay in politics. He's just here doing CEO kind of stuff. And people hate that. Some people hate it. Some people love it. But interestingly enough, he's one who says, I want to take care of the laws as they are on the books, and some people don't like it. Now, that's going to create confrontations, and we're hearing it, seeing it all over the place. And so just most recently, there was an incident with officers up in the Minneapolis area, and a young lady died. And a series of very bad decisions led to that conclusion. But as far as Christians are concerned, there's a lot of division among believers about this. And importantly, not only how we're supposed to conduct ourselves as far as laws are concerned, but even the idea of wanting to uphold and support laws that are there. So interestingly enough, the people who are making the most amount of noise are making noise against government agents and government agencies that have been in existence for a long time. One of the things that people don't realize, because now everybody knows the term immigration, the immigration, or what we call ICE, they know exactly what they are and who they are and everything. But the way that you would think, if people haven't been paying attention, they would kind of come to the conclusion that ICE didn't really exist until the modern, this particular administration. But what they don't know, most people don't know, is that during the Obama administration, there were more than 3 million deportations, and they were carried out by ICE. So it's this is the enforcement of customs and of immigration. So it's an interesting thing. They've been there all along, and these people that are now so upset about it didn't even make a noise about it when it was their guy doing it. But now, since it's this administration, now they want to be able to put up a fight, they want to protest, they want to defy, they want to go after law enforcement, and they do all kinds of things. So what should be the way that we as believers are supposed to exist? First of all, we are supposed to make sure that our particular conduct is exemplary. Where do we see that? Let me give you a couple of examples. Let's take a look at them. We had just looked through something in Romans in the Bible study, so let's stay in Romans. Let's turn to chapter 12. And remember, chapter 12 begins by saying, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present yourself a living sacrifice to God, holy, acceptable, it's your reasonable service. So that's what we're supposed to be, this idea that we offer ourselves to God, and that means everything about our lives here and everything that we do should be an offering to the Lord of ourselves. Lord, how can I be pleasing to you? I offer myself. Well, further down in that chapter, we read in let's start at verse 14. Bless those, I'm jumping right into the context. You can go ahead and read it for yourself, but it says, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse, rejoice with those who rejoice, and weep with those who weep. These are all things of conduct. So it says, be of the same mind toward one another. Do not set your mind on high things, but associate with the humble. Do not be wise in your own opinion. And then it says, repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for the good things in the sight of all men. And if it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably among all men. Beloved, do not avenge yourself, but rather give place to wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. So this is a way, and again, remember the world in which these people lived. They're under the thumb of Rome, and it's easy to become a subversive at that time. So when I'm reading these various pastors and these various, church leaders and all the rest of it rail against the way that the government does what it does in the enforcement of the laws, really what you're seeing, though people want to protest it and they don't want to see, people rounded up and deported for being here illegally, I'm seeing a lot of Christians that are basically saying, we need to put up resistance against this. Well, if the people who are doing this are actually enforcing the law and removing people who are not here legally, they're following the letter of the law. And if the church is getting involved in that and saying that they shouldn't be doing it, they then become part of the problem, and they are not being subject to the laws of the nation. That's a problem, and that speaks poorly of the church, because that puts the church against and at odds with the government. Now, again, if there are some things that the government asks us to do that are immoral and that are unlawful as believers, then yeah, we want to say something. But the idea that what they're doing in the streets now is somehow unlawful, it's anything but. They're actually enforcing the laws that are already on the books. If people don't like it, they can vote to change those laws and have Congress do it. But to stand there and be part of the opposition, or do your own blogs and all the rest of it opposing this from some Christian point of view, you don't have a biblical leg to stand on by doing it. Now, in 1 Peter, let's turn there. And I know this is just brief, but 1 Peter is something also that goes to this idea of our conduct among the nations, and how it is that we are supposed to do the things that we do. Are we going to set ourselves as opposition, or are we going to be people who are just citizens? Now, again, remember, both Paul and Peter, the world in which they live is Rome. And Rome does incredibly wicked things. They know that, but they are nonetheless the power that is there. And the church should never be seen as subversive. Now, if the church is underground in a nation that would say, let's say outlawing Christianity, which you find in other parts of the world, the church is not supposed to just take that lying down either. So that's not what we're talking about. The laws, if they are not immoral, if they don't make us violate our particular beliefs as Christians, and we don't have to compromise what the Bible tells us we're supposed to do, then those things are supposed to be followed, or else we become the subversives, and that's bad. It's a bad look on the church. So what Peter ends up saying here in 1 Peter chapter 2, let's pick it up at verse 11. Beloved, I beg you, as sojourners and as pilgrims, which helps us to understand that yes, we're the church, and we live in a world, but we're just passing through. Now, what that means is that we want to make sure that what we do in that world, even as sojourners and as pilgrims, we're on our way somewhere else, but what we leave behind should be something that, if people examine it, we don't make the God that we speak about look bad in the process. So he says, I beg you as sojourners and as pilgrims that you abstain from fleshly lusts which war against your soul, having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, the non-believers. Your conduct being honorable among Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may by your good works, which they do observe, glorify God in the day when it's all going to count, the day of visitation. So they can make all kinds of accusations against you, but under examination, it would fail under examination. They would come to find out that everything that they would say, though they may want to still say it, will be ashamed of it because it's not true. So it says, therefore, submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether to the king as supreme. So yeah, that means that we are subject to the laws of the place where we live. And again, if you want to try to tell me that what we've got in this country is worse than what they had under the Roman Empire and the king that was there, you're deluded. If you're trying to make the case that somehow what we're having to deal with is worse. And I see that even people that are professing Christians doing the No Kings rallies and all the rest of it, it's absurd and it's ridiculous and it's completely against this here. Besides, a king, if our current administration was actually a king, he would kill the people in the streets for doing it. You can't do that where there's a king. So anyway, it's just the whole thing it's preposterous and silly. Verse 14 says, or to the people who are more regional, to the governors, as to those who are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers, for the praise of those who do good. So yeah, there's from the king on down to the people who are there to keep order and to keep things as they're supposed to be. So interestingly enough, what we see in our current situation is, depending on what your political party is and however it is, the people who should be, even if they don't agree with the law, and I'm thinking about like the mayor and the governor of Minnesota, where this just happened recently, but it's in other places around the country, if they really cared about their people like they say, even if they don't like the law being done, they would have their people standing between the people. Instead, they're whipping them up. They should be saying to their law enforcement, let's give them room to do what they do, and let's not let our people be harmed in the process. They may be mad at the federal government and the agencies that are carrying this out, but let's make sure that our law enforcement keeps the peace and that no one gets hurt in the process. Then the sooner that they get out, the better. Instead, they go out and they take to a microphone and they inflame everyone, and then they wonder why violence happens. So the whole thing is just ridiculous. So in this case, the governors, if you will, or the regional people are not doing what's coming out from the rest of the or from the government. It's a different type of a government that we have then versus now, but the same principle is in place. Interestingly enough, the same kind of things were starting to take place in a couple of the cities here in Texas, but our governor didn't put up with it. He used the local law enforcement to give way to the federal law enforcement and didn't let people engage them. And so there won't be harm done to anybody on either side because the law is going to keep that from happening. So it's a really an interesting contrast of one state versus another. And so we see it, again, what Peter is talking about here, he has no idea that we're going to be around 2,000 years down the road. Our idea of government versus what there was under the Roman Empire looks entirely different. But you can't tell me for a moment that what is expected of the believer is different from their time to ours. The believer is the believer. We serve God first and foremost, and we aren't subversive against the government that is in place. So it says, again, to governors as those who are sent by him to punish the evildoers and for the praise of those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men, as free, yet not using your liberty, because you're a free person, you don't use it as a cloak for vice. I have freedom in the Lord, so I'm going to do all kinds of other things. So we're finding that, again, some churches are making this their cause, to fight against the government at the local level for something that is just the enforcing of the laws. It's so incompatible. It's not as a Christian should be spending their time and doing the things that they are doing. They should not be standing in opposition to the government on something that is lawful. But nonetheless, it doesn't keep people from taking to the street. So, but don't use it as a cloak for vice, but instead be a bondservant of our God. Honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, and honor the king. So, give due reverence to the king. So if you're going to be a subversive against the king in their times, then you're going to start being a problem for that king, and you're going to make the church, you're going to bring persecution on the church when it's not necessary. So that's the problem that they had back then. Both the writers of both Paul and Peter see this as well. We may not like necessarily everything that the government does, but if they're not asking us to compromise, and if their laws do not infringe on us as being believers, we're to support them. And again, if you don't like the way that the laws are being enforced, you have a congressman. You can call them. You can make your voice heard. If people want to go ahead and laugh at that, they can laugh at it all that they want to. But nonetheless, the idea that we would be subversives in a time like this, and that somehow what they're asking them to do is somehow unlawful, it's been being done for decades the same way. At least the last administrations, including the Obama one, like I had mentioned earlier, 3 million plus people were deported by ICE. And I don't remember a single time of a protest that ever made it to this place. So what that tells you, it's not the law that's the problem, it's who's enforcing the law, and they want to make it a political thing. And unfortunately, people are being hurt and in some cases dying. And they're being whipped up into doing this by others who should be ratcheting it down. It's instead getting ratcheted up, and it should never be the church that's making that, helping that along the way. So interesting times in which we live. If you have any questions on any of this and the Bible study or the discussion of what we were just talking about there as far as what's happening with our policy as far as the government here in the United States is concerned, you can contact me through the ministry's website, oldpaththeology.net. You can contact me about the Israel trip. I would love to have you come along with us. Once again, I'm not making any plans for any other trips for the foreseeable future after the springtime. So if you want to go, that's kind of the window if you'd like to go with us. We have a very, very interesting trip. We get to places that most trips don't go to. So I'd love to be able to take you to those. It's kind of trip of a lifetime, very, very interesting place. And now is a good time to go because it's not as busy and it is very peaceful. We just got back. We were there in October. It was a wonderful trip and we had our run of the place. It was great.